4 promises under the desert sun. The dust devils were dancing across my land when they came riding up the canyon trail. 4 of them on horseback, their silhouettes wavering in the heat like mirages. I was mending fence near the creek when I spotted them. And something about the purposeful way they rode made me set down my hammer and reach for the Winchester leaning against the fence post. Living alone on the Broken Arrow Ranch for nigh on 8 years, a man learns to trust his instincts, and right then, my instincts were hollering louder than a coyote in moonlight. The lead rider was a woman, that much I could tell from the way she sat her horse, straight-backed and graceful. As they drew closer, I made out 3 more behind her, all women, all riding like they'd been born in the saddle. The morning sun caught the silver conchos on their saddles, and the dark gleam of their hair beneath wide-brimmed hats. I walked out to meet them at the gate, rifle cradled easy, in my arms. The lead woman pulled up her paint horse about 10 yards off and pushed back her hat, revealing a face that would have made angels weep with envy. Dark eyes, sharp cheekbones and skin the color of adobe in twilight. "You are Jake Thompson," she said. It wasn't a question. "That's what it says on the deed," I replied, studying each of them in turn. They were all beautiful in their own ways, one with braided hair and silver earrings that caught the light, another with fierce green eyes and a scar along her jaw, the third younger than the rest with a sweet face that didn't quite hide the steel underneath. The lead woman dismounted with fluid grace and walked to the gate. "My name is Elena Delgado. These are my sisters, Marisol, Carmen and Lucia." She gestured to each in turn. "We have come a very long way to see you, Senor Thompson." "Well," I said, not lowering the rifle but keeping it casual, "you found me. What's this about?" Elena's dark eyes never left mine. "You promised to marry all of us." I blinked hard, wondering if the desert heat was playing tricks on my mind. "Come again." 3 years ago in the cantina in Esperanza. You were drunk on tequila and lost at cards to our brother Miguel. When you could not pay your debts, you offered something else. Her voice was steady as stone. 4 promises of marriage to settle 4 different debts. The memory hit me like a kick from an ornery mule. Esperanza. That dusty border town where I'd gone to buy cattle and ended up 3 sheets to the wind, trying to bluff my way through a poker game with money I didn't have. It was all fuzzy around the edges, but I did recall a young Mexican man with quick hands and quicker wit, and the mounting pile of debts I couldn't cover. "Now hold on just a minute," I started, but Elena raised her hand. "You signed papers, senor. 4 separate contracts of betrothal." Miguel kept them very carefully. She reached into her saddlebag and produced a leather portfolio. "Our brother died last month, the cholera. Before he passed, he told us about these papers and where to find you." My mouth went dry as old leather. I'd done some fool things in my time, but this was shaping up to be the crown jewel of stupidity. Marisol, the one with the braids, urged her horse forward. "We have traveled over 300 miles. Our families believe we are visiting cousins in Santa Fe. We cannot return without honor." "Look, ladies," I said, setting the rifle against the gate post and raising my hands. "I'm real sorry about your brother, and I'm sure you're fine women, but I can't marry all 4 of you. It ain't legal, for one thing." Carmen, the fierce-eyed one with the scar, let out a laugh sharp as a knife blade. "We do not expect to all be wives at the same time. Estupido, we have come to settle this properly. You will choose one of us, and the others will be released from the contract with honor intact." "But how do we decide which one?" Young Lucia spoke for the first time, her voice soft but carrying across the yard. Elena folded the papers and tucked them away. "We have discussed this many times on the journey. We will stay here for 1 month. In that time, you will court each of us properly, and at the end, you will choose. The chosen one will become your wife, and the others will have fulfilled their obligation with honor." I stared at them, feeling like a Mustang that had just walked into a rope snare. "And if I refuse, then we go to the territorial marshal in Tucson, with these contracts and your forged signature agreeing to marry us all at once," Elena said with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "I am sure that would cause interesting complications for a man trying to run a ranch in this territory. The smart play would have been to laugh it off, tell them I never signed any such papers, and send them on their way. But looking at those 4 women, each one carrying herself with the kind of dignity that comes from crossing desert and mountain, to collect on a debt of honor. I found I couldn't do it. All right? I heard myself saying, 1 month, but I ain't promising to choose any of you at the end of. That is your right, Alina nodded. But you will court us fairly, and you will treat us with respect. Wouldn't have it any other way. You can stable your horses in the barn. I've got a spare room in the main house, and a couple of bunks in the bunkhouse. Carmen snorted. We did not ride 300 miles to sleep in your bunkhouse like vaqueros. We will make camp by the creek, under the cottonwoods. It is more proper. And so began the strangest month of my life. The first week near killed me with awkwardness. I'd been alone so long I'd forgotten how to talk to women, let alone court them. Alina insisted on a formal schedule, mornings with her, midday with Marisol, afternoons with Carmen, and evenings with Lucia. Alina proved to be a woman of formidable intelligence and education. She could read and write in 3 languages, knew more about cattle breeding than most men I'd met, and had opinions on everything from territorial politics to the price of silver. During our morning rides across the range, she'd point out ways to improve the ranch's efficiency and profitability. You have good land here, she said, one morning as we paused to water our horses at the North Spring. But you think too small. With the right partnerships in Mexico, you could triple your herd size and still have market for the beef. Partnerships cost money I don't have, I replied. Money can be found if the plan is sound. My father owns a large hacienda in Sonora. He would listen to the right proposal, especially from his daughter's husband. There was the rub. Alina saw marriage as a business arrangement, a way to combine resources and build something large. She was probably right from a practical standpoint, but something in me rebelled against the cold calculation of it. Marisol was different altogether. Where Alina was all sharp edges and quick wit, Marisol was soft curves and gentle laughter. She had a gift with animals that bordered on magical, could calm spooked horses with a touch and coax injured cattle into the barn without ropes or prodding. During our midday hours, she'd help me with the ranch work, and I found myself looking forward to her quiet presence. She didn't talk much, but when she did, it was worth hearing. You are lonely here, she observed one day, as we doctored a calf with a cut leg. I've got the cattle and the horses, sometimes too much company for my taste. She smiled, holding the calf steady while I applied salve to the wound. Animals are good companions, but they cannot hold you when the nightmares come. That caught me off guard. Who says I have nightmares? Your eyes say it. They have seen too much of death and violence. That is why you live alone. You think you do not deserve peace. I'd never talked about the war with anyone, about the things I'd seen and done wearing blue wool in places like Antietam and Fredericksburg. But somehow Marisol knew, and her knowing didn't feel like judgment. Carmen was fire to Marisol's water. During our afternoon rides, she'd challenge me to races, her black stallion flying across the desert like a comet. She'd grown up on a ranch, knew how to work cattle and break horses, could shoot a rifle better than most men, and wasn't shy about proving it. You fight like an old woman, she said after throwing me in the dirt for the 3rd time during one of our sparring sessions. No wonder you live alone. What woman wants a man she can defeat in combat? Most women don't feel the need to wrestle their suitors into submission, I gasped, spitting out dust. Most women are fools who marry weak men and wonder why their lives are unhappy. She offered me a hand up. A woman needs to know her man can protect her and their children. How can she know this if she does not test him? Carmen had a point, though I didn't much enjoy being her testing ground. She'd survived Apache raids, fought off bandits, and helped run her family's ranch after her father was killed. She needed a partner, not a protector, and wasn't interested in playing at being helpless. Lucia was the youngest at 19, but in some ways the most mysterious. Our evening conversations were often the deepest, ranging across philosophy, religion, and dreams of the future. She had a poet's soul trapped in a rancher's daughter's life. Do you ever wonder what lies beyond the mountains? She asked one night as we sat by the creek, watching fireflies dance over the water. I've been beyond the mountains, seen the ocean, big cities, green countries where it rains every few days. None of it seemed as real as this desert. But don't you want to see more? Learn more? There are places where they have libraries with thousands of books, theaters with plays and music, museums full of art and history. What would I do with all that culture? I'm a rancher, not a scholar. She looked at me with those young, serious eyes. You could be both. You could be anything you chose to be. The second week brought complications. Elena's business-like approach to courtship started including more personal elements, brushing my hand when she passed me coffee, letting her hair down from its usual severe bun during our rides, asking pointed questions about my intention. Marisol began bringing me small gifts, wildflowers for the kitchen table, fresh bread baked over her campfire, a shirt she'd mended with tiny perfect stitches. Nothing bold or forward, just quiet kindnesses that accumulated like snow on a mountainside. Carmen escalated our sparring sessions and started finding excuses to touch me, adjusting my grip on a rope, checking a cut on my hand, placing her palm against my chest to feel my heartbeat after a hard ride. Her flirtation was as direct as her conversation, and Lucia began staying later each evening, our talk stretching past moonrise as she shared stories of her childhood, her dreams, her fears about the future. There was an intimacy to those conversations that had nothing to do with physical contact, and everything to do with souls recognizing each other. By the third week I was around 4 beautiful, intelligent women, each offering a different vision of what life could be, and I was no closer to making a choice than when they'd first ridden up to my gate. Worse, I was starting to care about all of them, which made the whole situation feel like a slow-motion catastrophe. The crisis came on a Tuesday morning when Elena announced she'd received a letter from her father. "He has heard rumors about our journey," she said, her face pale beneath its usual composed mask. "If we do not return soon with news of betrothal, he will come looking for us, with men and guns." Carmen cursed in rapid-fire Spanish. How did he find out? Word travels. A priest in Santa Fe became suspicious when 4 unmarried women asked about the road to Tucson. He wrote to the bishop, who mentioned it to a merchant, who told a vaquero who works for my father's friend. "How long do we have?" I asked. "Perhaps a week. Maybe less if he is already riding." That afternoon, everything went to hell. Carmen and Elena got into a shouting match about whose fault it was that their secret had been discovered. Marisol tried to play peacemaker and got shouted at by both of them. Lucia disappeared entirely, and I found her hours later sitting by herself up on the mesa crying. "I knew this would happen," she said when I sat down beside her. "I told them we should have been honest from the beginning. Now Papa will come, and there will be violence, and someone will be hurt or killed. Your father's that protective. Our cousin Rosa ran away with an Anglo trader 2 years ago. Papa tracked them down and shot the man. Rosa has been locked in her room ever since." Lucia wiped her eyes with her sleeve. "He will not let this family be dishonored again." That night I called them all together by the campfire. 4 faces looked at me in the firelight, each one reflecting a different mix of hope and fear and stubborn pride. "Ladies," I said, "I've been thinking about this all wrong from the start. You came here to settle a debt of honor, and I've been treating it like some kind of game or contest. But the truth is, I can't choose between you because you're all remarkable women, who deserve better than being part of some drunken gambling debt." Elena's eyes flashed. "So you refuse to honor the contracts?" "No, I honor them by releasing you from them. All of. I'll write a letter stating that I've declared the debts settled and the contracts void. You can return to your families with honor intact and your freedom restored." "And what of you?" Carmen asked. "I'll go back to living alone on my ranch, same as before." Marisol shook her head. "That is not the same as before. You know us now, you will spend the rest of your life wondering what might have been." She was right, but I couldn't see another way that didn't end with someone getting hurt. Lucia stood up suddenly. "There is another solution." We all looked at her. "The contracts were made to settle gambling debts." "Yes, so let us gamble." Elena frowned. "What do you mean?" "One hand of poker. Winner takes all, including the right to marry Jake if she chooses. The others are free to return home or go wherever they wish." It was crazy enough to work. Carmen was grinning like a coyote. Elena looked thoughtful. Marisol just nodded quietly. "And if none of you want to marry me after all this?" I asked. Lucia smiled. "Then you will still be alone, but at least you will know you gave 4 women the chance to choose their own future." We played by firelight with an old deck of cards from my saddlebags. I dealt but didn't participate. This was their game to play. The stakes were nothing less than the rest of their lives. Elena played with the same calculating intelligence she brought to everything else, folding early on marginal hands and betting big when she had the cards. Carmen was aggressive, bluffing frequently and trying to intimidate the others into folding. Marisol played quietly and conservatively, staying in only when she had strong hands. And Lucia, sweet young Lucia who wrote poetry and dreamed of distant libraries, played like she'd been gambling in saloons her whole life. In the end it came down to the final hand. Alina and Lucia, the oldest and youngest, facing each other across a pot that contained their futures. Alina showed her cards first, 3 queens, a powerful hand. Lucia laid down her cards slowly, one by one, a straight flush and heart. Alina stared at the cards for a long moment, then began to laugh. Miguel always said the youngest bird learns to fly the highest. The next morning, Alina, Carmen, and Marisol prepared to leave. Alina was returning to her father's hacienda to help run the family business. Carmen had decided to travel to California, where she'd heard there were opportunities for a woman with her skills. Marisol was going to Santa Fe to work with the Sisters of Mercy, helping care for orphaned children. Before they rode out, each of them had a private word with me. Alina, take care of her. She is stronger than she looks, but she will need patience and understanding. Carmen, if you ever hurt her, I will track you down and make you regret the day you were born. Marisol, love her gently, she has enough poetry in her soul for both of you. And then they were gone, riding out across the desert, like the mirages that had brought them to me. Lucia and I were married a month later by the circuit preacher. She wore her grandmother's wedding dress, and I wore the only clean shirt I owned. We honeymooned in Santa Fe, where she spent 3 days in the governor's library while I waited outside, just happy to watch her face light up as she discovered new books. She was right about one thing: I could be more than just a rancher. With her help I learned to read properly, started keeping better records, even tried my hand at writing down some of the stories from my war days. She turned out to have a head for business that rivaled Alina's and a way with the ranch hands that made them work twice as hard, just to earn her smile. We heard from the other 3 over the years. Alina built her father's ranch into a cattle empire that stretched across 3 Mexican states. Carmen became a legendary figure in California, the first woman to own a stagecoach line. Marisol established an orphanage in Santa Fe that became famous throughout the territory for the care and education it provided. Sometimes on quiet evenings, when Lucia and I sit on the porch watching our children play in the yard, I think about that crazy month when 4 women rode into my life and turned everything upside down. I wonder if Miguel Delgado knew what he was doing when he kept those contracts, if maybe he understood that sometimes the best way to settle a debt is to give people the chance to choose their own future. But mostly I just count my blessings that Lucia was the best poker player of the 4 of them. After all, some promises are worth keeping, even if they take a while to understand what they really mean.